So Dr.
Okay.
Alice MacKinnon is a mindfulness practitioner and teacher specializing in the practices of Zen, yoga, and Qigong. She is also a published writer and poet. For over 20 years, Alice was a professional and community environmental educator, consultant, and communicator. A self-confessed workaholic, she earned a PhD in adult learning from UTS. And the insight gleaned from this sustained research still informs her work today. However, as with many women of a certain age, Alice stepped away from her first career and retrained as a fitness, surfing, and yoga instructor, followed by becoming a certified Qigong instructor under Lee Holden. Most recently, Alice has undertaken professional and personal development in trauma-informed practice, gentle somatic yoga, and creative community recovery. And she is engaged with her, as she has engaged with her own need to address nervous system overload. Alice hosts community classes across Southeast Queensland for all ages and organisational wellness programs and retreats in the areas of self-care, wellness, and creativity. Thanks for joining us, Alice.
Thanks so much, Lindy. It's a pleasure and a privilege to be here.
We're pleased to have you. Alice, now you have made some fundamental changes in later life, and there are many of us who are looking to do the same. Some know what they want to pursue. Others are not so sure, but they know they need to change direction. So today, I just want to share a little bit of how and why you made these changes and what it's meant to you. So firstly, what is it that motivated you to do a full 180 on your career and move into the wellness sector specifically?
Lindy, I guess, there was a pivotal moment late in my career where I had successfully set up out of my PhD a not-for-profit sustainability adult learning centre based on the inspiration of Schumacher College in the UK and various other places. And I'd poured everything into getting that going, getting that up and running retreats that were called Courageous Conversations, bringing leaders together from community, business and government. And that was on top of, 10 or 12 years earlier than that, working in community and as a consultant in the environmental area. And so I poured everything into that. I was raising my son, and I just realised probably 6 to 8 years into that it was eating me alive. So I knew that was an issue. And I stepped aside from that just to go part-time for a while. I was the CEO of that not-for-profit organisation, and I decided to step aside. I squirrel away little savings accounts everywhere, and so I had a savings account that was coming to maturity, and I knew that I could go part-time and still have some money. I could still support myself and my son. So I did that. And that was when I actually started to sit on my veranda and drink cups of tea, and I could hear the whispering of the wind and the soil and, my home forest up here at Binnaburra. And so I started to write poetry out of that because my mind got still enough to do that. And then a few years later, an extremely conservative right-wing government was elected in Queensland. And my work was still part-time in the environmental field, still working with ethos and consulting. And when that happened, I just thought, I cannot go back 20 years and try to restart conversations with these dinosaurs.
Yeah.
I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. And I knew that I was about to become really angry and bitter. And I didn't want to go to that place. I didn't want to become an angry and bitter environmental protector.
Yeah.
Because my work had always been around negotiation and collaboration. And I'm a peacemaker. Yeah. So that's when I decided in 2012 to retrain. I was working with a PT, a personal trainer every now and then. And he happened to have a registered training organisation that trained fitness trainers. And as we do with our PTs, we got, he knew what was going on in my life. And he said to me one day, have you ever thought about training as a fitness instructor? And I said, oh, do you think I'm too old? And he just said, no, there's no way. You know, I've had an active life all my life. I'm really lucky. My body's strong and it's fit. And he said, no, you're fine. So I took the plunge and I did a 6-week full-time training course, got my Cert 3 and 4, and that was a springboard then into that whole kind of reinvention of myself.
So it wasn't a premeditated thing at all. Obviously, fitness and health had been a big part of your life, but
yes,
but it wasn't necessarily a premeditated direction.
Definitely not. It wasn't, but it made sense once John, my PT, suggested it. It made a lot of sense because way back in the 80s when I lived in Sydney for a few years, I had been an aerobics instructor while I was doing some university studies. I quite like the industry. They're a bit of a tribe for me, the people in the health and fitness area. I'm at home with them.
Yeah.
And so there was a logic to it that I could step straight in. 6 weeks training would enable me then to just start earning money again. I could pick up clients quickly. I could continue to earn an income, which is critical, as we know, when you're raising a family. And so I knew that the transition could be quite quick. And then once I did that, it turned out that training became a wonderful springboard into longer term training in yoga and qigong and indeed surf instructing that then helped me to broaden my offerings and to really dive deeply into my own practices. And
excuse my puppy there, sorry. Very distracted.
No worries.
It's like a child. She's like, as soon as I get on the phone or something, she has to come and chat.
That's really cute.
Sorry about that. Yes. Okay. So obviously the fitness instructor and the PT came in first. Then at what point did you discover surfing?
Oh, well, that was completely accidental. At 40, I learned, so I did my midlife career transition at 50. At 46, after a lifetime of longing to surf and giving up on the dream, when I fell pregnant with my son, and I just let it go. But I grew up on the Gold Coast during the 70s and 80s, which were brutal times for women in the ocean.
For women, brutal blues, right?
Yes, exactly. And I'd never found the gumption. It was before surf schools. I'd never found the gumption to really stick it out and teach myself to surf in those brutal conditions. So, I'd pick up garage sale surfboards every now and then, and I'd have another crack at it, and I never, ever got it going. But then at 46, I was camping with my son, Hewan, down at Lennox Heads. We used to do that for a couple of weeks at the end of each year. And I saw a flyer for surf lessons in the campsite laundry, and I went, oh, there it is. There it is. And so I checked with Hugh, who was 12 at the time, and said, hey, let's have some surf lessons. Would you be up for that? And he was. And so I booked us both in for 3 surf lessons at Lennox. And the moment that I met the surf instructor and we're hauling our big foam boards down the sand on the main beach at Lennox, and he's talking about how waves form and how they work, and I knew that it was love. It was love. And when I caught my first wave on my big foam surfboard, it was like the surf gods suddenly went, it's your time. You're going to be a surfer now.
Now, come on, you can't have caught some good waves in those first 3 lessons, did you?
I did.
In the first lesson?
And there was this really important moment in that first lesson where I was really conscious of a choice. There was a conscious choice I made, because it would have been really easy to just muck around and be a middle-aged woman, squealing and, falling about. And there was a moment where I went, I can do that, or I could actually make a commitment to this, and I could focus and I could balance and I could make a commitment to myself. And so that first wave that came, I just went, this is it. I'm doing this. And I focused and I balanced and I got up and I stood up on this wave, and it just took me into shore, and it was like, it's my time now. It is my time. And I didn't stop. That the surf instructor then lent me one of those big foam surfboards for the rest of the holidays, which was such a generous thing to do. And I pinched one of my son's rashies and boardies, and I spent every waking moment out in the whitewater at Lennox.
Not a bad place to learn to surf, right?
Oh, it's still my favourite place to surf.
Yeah.
But I was completely absorbed and enamoured with it, because it's another pattern. It's a pattern language.
Yeah.
You know, you get to see the ocean and the tides and the winds and the weather. They're all interacting, and I just find it, as a massive nature lover, it was just like I was a pig in mud. It was just like, oh my God, I'm going to learn how to read these patterns, and I'm going to learn how to ride these waves of energy.
So it really is the spiritual experience everybody talks about it being.
It can be. It can be. It is. It certainly is for me. It's a moving meditation for me.
Yeah.
I'm very much in my breath when I'm surfing, in all sorts of conditions. But you know, there's some very technical skill sets that you develop as well.
Yeah.
And I was saying to a friend the other day, it's a real mix of mind, no mind. So it's very Zen. I find it very Zen.
Yeah.
That the mind, you know, there are some skills and some practices and techniques that you have to learn, and that keep evolving as you keep surfing. So you get better and better. So that's very that's like, okay, look up, look along the line of the wave, back foot on the board first, you know, a whole lot of really basic stuff.
Yeah.
And then you have to let that go and trust that your body knows what to do, and then it becomes no mind.
Yeah. Well, you're not thinking. Yeah, you're not having to think about it and plan it. So you're obviously ride boards. You're a yoga instructor. You're a qigong instructor, and a fitness instructor. So how were these things? Like, at what point in your life did all these things come in? Were they quite close together? Did you just go mad and say, all right, I'm going to do it all? What happened?
No, I didn't go mad. I got my fitness instructing first, and I got going with my business with that first. Yeah, you know, I had to bring in an income. Yeah. So, you know, and I was offered a number of community classes to teach on the Northern Gold Coast, which was great. Gave me some bread and butter.
Yeah.
And I was working with clients at a gym on the Southern Gold Coast as well. And so I worked really hard at that. And I think somewhere inside a year of doing that, I had practiced. I'm now 58, and I've practiced yoga since I was about 25, 26. And so inside that first year of fitness instructing, I went, wow, I'd actually really like to become a yoga teacher as well, because fitness instructing is great. It's going to take me a certain distance, but I want more depth.
Yeah.
And so then I took on my yoga instructor's teacher training. That took a good kind of 8 or 9 months, but I was able to start teaching yoga classes within that period, which was lovely.
Yeah.
And during that time, I was offered the opportunity to become a surf instructor with one of the local surf schools at Currumbin, totally out of the blue. I was like, oh my God.
It's a little bit like when you surrender it, right? And then it starts to come. Now,
absolutely.
Obviously, you're incredibly active, and I think, you know, and I wouldn't look, you know, I love to do certain things that keep me going. So I'm a mover, you know, I do Pilates and bike riding and paddleboarding and things like that, but I'm definitely not a boot camper. With the thought of it just drives me crazy. But as a fitness instructor, then, what are your thoughts on the level of activity women should undertake as we age? Like, what are some recommendations?
Yeah, I think about that a lot. In my community classes, a lot of us are over 50. I have an 86-year-old man in one of my classes. I have an 82-year-old woman in one of my classes. So because I want to surf until I die, I've thought a lot about fitness longevity, you know, movement longevity. So I think No, I none of my classes are about boot camp. I've never been a boot camper. I'm not. I have thrashed my body at different times. In my early years, I have thrashed my body in different physical ways. But I think, I got to my mid-40s and my body didn't want to do that anymore. Yeah. And I heard it and I respected it and I pulled back. So I think as we age, I think we do need to get our heart and our lungs moving. We do need to huff and puff.
Yeah.
But we need to do it in ways that aren't going to risk injury, or, we need to be careful about what we choose to do that.
Yeah.
So that's really important. We need to huff and puff. We need strength and resistance.
Yeah.
We need to keep our bones strong. And we need to keep our bodies strong. Muscle density, lean muscle mass is really important for us as we age.
Yeah.
So strength and resistance, it's the boring stuff. I only do it once a week, but I make myself do it.
Yeah.
Your push-ups, the seated rows, all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I think that's really critical. We also need suppleness and strength and flexibility. So, yoga, qigong, that kind of thing, really important. I think it's a combination of those things.
Yeah, it's a bit of organic movement too, isn't it, really? Just to make sure it's got some sustenance or substance rather behind it. So
it really does.
Yeah.
It does need some substance. And I think, there is I think it's important to show up for it. We all know that meditation is really good for us. We can read all the books we want about meditation, but it's not going to make any difference to our lives unless we show up and meditate, whether it's 5 minutes a day or 20 minutes or half an hour, whatever it is. We have to show up regularly for that to make a difference to our lives. And there's a kind of a discipline in showing up.
Oh, there is. I can be terrible. The meditation, which I like to do, but I just somehow it's like, I've got to get running. I got to, so I do have to make a effort, right? It's not easy.
Yes. And I think it's the same with exercise. I'm lucky. My body loves exercise, so I don't have to make myself show up for it. And I really feel for people whose bodies don't enjoy exercise, because for them, it really needs to be a planned and disciplined effort.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, now on to something a little more spiritual again. Now, you've written 2 books. So 2016's The Dharma of Surfing, Wisdom from the Water for Life. And then your 2018 release, Surfing as a Dance, How One Woman Found Grace in and Out of the Water. I didn't get a chance to read these before we'd locked in this, or after we'd locked in this interview. So I'd love to, and I would like to read them, obviously, but I would love to learn a little bit more about your inspiration behind them.
Oh, thanks, Lindy. I really enjoyed writing and kind of curating both of those books, and I have others in my mind that I'll do in future. I love writing. I'm a journaler. Actually, one of my early degrees was in journalism, print journalism, and I remember in one of my first classes in doing print journalism, I just went, I get this. I know, I feel it. I can do this. Yeah. And so I've kind of kept up my writing ever since then. Yeah. Those books, I think becoming a late in life surfer makes you a lot more conscious about the process of learning, and especially the process of learning from the ocean. So I really respect the ocean as my biggest teacher. And so I wanted to put together the first book, The Dharma of Surfing. I wanted to put together a book of little wisdoms, of learnings that I had accrued through my first few years of surfing. And that's what that book is. It's 52 wisdoms from the water that also relate to our life on land. So, there's so many things about surfing from even the point of before I go into the water, I always stretch. I always have a little ritual of stretching, of greeting the morning, of saying, thank you, Mother Nature, you're looking beautiful this morning. I have a little mindfulness verse that I use. I feel my feet on the sand. Yeah. I try to pick up the energy of the ocean as I'm stretching. So little rituals to start the day and to start a surf. Yeah. Really important. And rituals to end the day as well, and rituals to end the surf. So whenever I come out of the surf and I finish my surf, I always just pause at the water's edge with my board and look back out and give a little bow of thanks as well. And you know, they're really relevant to life. Yeah. It's probably a book of mindfulness, and it's the Dharma of it, really, Dharma with a capital D, in terms of a spiritual practice, means the way, you know, the deep way. The Dharma leads us through life. This one is a small d Dharma, but it's recognizing that the ocean and surfing do open up ways of being for us that are meaningful and mindful. So that's what that book's about.
Absolutely. Wow.
And the second book is a little bit of a memoir of my first 10 years of surfing. And I don't know why I felt moved to do that. It was just, I think because our generation of women were excluded from surfing, you know, during the 70s, 80s and the first part of the 90s. I guess I wanted to tell my story about reclaiming surfing in a way that would, for some other women, would help them go, damn, I really want to reclaim my surfing story or my fitness story or whatever it was that they had, whatever dream they had let go for whatever reasons. I just wanted them to know that it's possible. It doesn't matter how old you are, you can still reclaim that dream. Yeah.
I think that's just really important. And I think, you know, it's a little bit like what I'm trying to do with the hub. Obviously, it's about health and well-being and learning and all of those things. But, you know, we don't have a use-by date. It's about making sure that we still can do whatever the hell we want to do at any particular point in time, you know, depending on what we want to do. So, that's lovely. That's fantastic. And you mentioned something in something that I read, an Anne Lamott quote, getting published. Oh, yes. I love this. Getting published won't heal your life, but writing will. Now, I've always kind of wanted to put a lot of stuff down on paper in a book, and I just thought, oh, well, nobody's going to publish it. There's no point. But it really is about just writing, isn't it? So what is it about putting pen to paper with your thoughts, or, you know, whether that's a daily journal or whether that's a book? What are the healing qualities of this?
Oh, I think there are really profound healing qualities in it. I journal every day, and I always make sure there's two things I do before I walk out the door. That's journaling and 20 minutes of meditation. And the journaling, you know, it's like it can change from day to day. Sometimes there's so much stuff going on in our minds, just to be able to dump it on the page, clears space. Yeah. So that I find really useful. I find sometimes it just becomes a creative outlet. I can often feel a poem or an article starting to kind of buzz around in the back of my mind. And if I've got my journal there and I'm showing up to it every day, you know, at some point it will flow. So creatively, it's really therapeutic. It happened to me this morning. I was listening to a podcast last night that really resonated for me, and I slept on it overnight, and I woke up this morning and I didn't even know that there was these thoughts going through my mind, but I sat up in bed with my journal and just started to stream of consciousness kind of writing. And these thoughts about my commitment to where do I want to go next in terms of my work, in terms of my offerings and my invitations, particularly to women. And so these ideas started to flow out of that. And so it became the first stages of a planning process as well. And, so those are just 3 examples of what comes out for me when I'm journaling. You can be your own best psychologist as well. Yeah.
But all of those, particularly the sort of emptying of everything that's going on in your head, and as you say, being able to, once it's there, you can starts to sort of morph into something that's more logical in some cases, right? I certainly should be doing a lot more of that, and certainly the more I've delved into it, they say that journaling and writing a book or whatever it might be is a fantastic outlet. You have taken some enormous strides, in mid-age. What do we call, from our sort of 50. And I almost want to say it's courageous, but I actually feel like it's more about you've just followed the path. You've followed your own path, right? And you weren't afraid to do that, or maybe you were afraid to do it and you did it anyway. And that's, that's what we've got to remember, and that's what we've got to share is that even if we feel not feeling comfortable, but no, we need to do it, perhaps that's what we should be doing.
Yeah, I think so. Some of it, I was very careful with. There are some real practicalities. Doing a midlife career pivot, change, reinvention, it's pretty risky. And so, if I hadn't had that savings there, it would have been a lot harder. I think it's really important to have some practicalities. And I'm a bit of a Capricorn, so it's good to have some practical supports, because I don't want to take a leap of faith without any safety net.
No. There's some logic, but it's I get what you're saying. Yeah.
And I think, Lindy, I don't know, some of it's like catching a wave. You just go, you commit and you go. And then the energy that takes you, is wondrous, and the journey is amazing. And I think it's a process of evolution. I, like all of us, I am still grappling with the imposter syndrome. And, what I journaled this morning about what I am feeling to offer in future was really sort of saying to myself, look, I think I'm 8 years now into this career change. I think I'm building up some solid practices and skills and knowledge. It's okay. You don't have to feel anxious before every class.
So true, isn't it, though? It doesn't matter what we do. And even for how long sometimes. Oh my gosh. And it is something I think that we can support each other on is helping women to make those steps with great confidence. That's, I think, why sharing stories like yours is definitely helpful. And I know it'll be so well received. So I want to thank you very much for sharing that with us. We couldn't, I think there's a lot of women out there sort of thinking about that. So Alice, I want to thank you so much for your contribution today and talking.
Thank you so much, Lindy. I thank you. It's lovely to meet you.